Welcome back to The Walk-In. Today, you're stepping into the world of Adeline, a soul with gifts you might not believe until you hear them yourself. We start with her story, her energy, and her extraordinary ability to see and feel beyond what most of us can imagine. This is a conversation about intuition, connection, and the unseen threads that tie us all together. And trust me, by the end, you're going to be asking yourself questions you've never thought to ask. This is Soul State, Reading Between Lives. Like even me, I'm trying to learn how to manage my energy better. Because while my energy might be fine, externally I might be showing a different energy that I'm not meaning to. And so learning how to be better at that, you know? My energy might be really positive. I might be in a really good mood, but because I'm not showing the world that, it comes off that my energy's bad, you know. And I don't know a whole lot about energy. I'm still learning the little bits and pieces. But I mean, as someone who's sat with energy, how long have you been sitting with energy?
What do you mean sitting with energy?
How long have you been living the lifestyle of looking at people's energy and your own energy?
So that is about 2 years now, theoretically.
Okay.
I have always felt energy and moved energy and done things with energy without realizing that I was doing it.
Okay.
Which is what made me start looking into what was happening to me.
So the reason you started looking into it is because you already kind of had a kindling with it, but you wanted to know why.
Correct. So when I was little, I used to see spirits just walking around, different things. And it was overwhelming a lot because I was born, into a family that it is mostly Christianity was the main religion, right? So when, as a child, you tell your parent, hey, I'm seeing these things, or I'm seeing people, I can hear them chattering, or, anything, it was always oh, that's demonic. That's the devil disguised, right? And that's what I always used to hear. When I would get angry, things will happen around me, right? And not very positive things. So, and, it's coincidence, right? But as I kept growing, I would have more incidents and more incidents. And I think the biggest incident I have, I would say, is probably when I was 19. I was living with my mom and my dad, and nobody was home but my sister that day. And I was taking a shower. And as I was taking a shower, we had the glass doors in the bathroom. So I felt like somebody was looking at me, and it felt really uncomfortable because I was in the bathroom. So I remember that I closed my eyes and I'm Grandma says there's nothing out there, right? It's just the devil, right? It's just the devil. And as I opened my eyes, I remember doing a prayer and saying, God, help me through this because there's nobody there. So I don't know why I feel like this, right? So just take this feeling away, or, make me see clearly that nothing is there, right? Well, the opposite happened because I actually saw a ball about, I would say 6 inches, from top in diameter, all around. And it was floating through the bathroom from left to right. And it was floating very, very, very slowly. And I saw it and I closed my eyes again and I said, well, I thought about it so much that now I'm seeing things, right? The mind can produce images. So that's what's happening to me. I thought about it and it affected me so much, that feeling, that emotion, that now I'm just seeing things. And I said, God, please help me, right? Because now I'm seeing things. So I need you to please help me. And I open my eyes again and the ball goes towards the window. And my mom used to have this clip underwear hanging thing on the window. And, I can't forget the feeling of fear when that ball reached out to the window itself to kind of like, pass through the wall in the window. That whole piece, it just literally went up into the air, and it went like backwards, and it hit the wall, and then it fell down to the floor. I ran out of the bathroom, like with soap on my hair and everything. I was like, the mind might be able to produce images, but there's no way it can move things. According to what like I was like raised with, right? Like I one thing is to be insane and see things, and another is for things to actually move. And that was the first time that I understood that there was more. Before, I would always be like, there's something wrong with me, I'm not really seeing these things, like something is like wrong with me, as in like I'm crazy. And when that happened, it was like, no, there's something out there that I don't understand. And that's what kind of made me like initially start looking into things, right? Like I would always see spirits. Like I remember the time that I was, it was a different apartment with my mom, and I woke up. It must have been like 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and when I get up, there was this girl with long black hair sitting at my computer. Like I could just see her hair, and I'm like, oh, you don't belong here, and I'm definitely not seeing anything. And as I said that, she turns towards me and actually looks at me. And I still remember that I like covered myself with a blanket, and I was like 17 around there, right? Come to find out, because I told my mom about this experience, and I told her, listen, I saw this girl, and she was sitting there, and I know she was there because I saw her clear as day. Like it wasn't like an imagination, like you feel something. No, it was like I literally saw her sitting there. And at nighttime, I always used to feel like my toes were getting like pulled or whatnot. Well, come to find out, we did a little bit of research on the house. There was a girl that was about 19 years old. She was gonna be 19 actually, and she had died because she fell into the laundry chute. So like these really old houses that have like laundry chutes and stuff. She actually fell into the laundry chute, and that had happened like 17 years prior to that experience, right? And I have a lot of different experiences with the dead, with different ghosts and different things, and that's what made me start looking like more into it. Like something is out there, something is going on. So I started exploring how things were kind of like rolling in my life. Like, when I would see things or feel things, when I got married with my ex-husband, I used to feel a lot. And I mean, there was times that I would wake him up in the middle of the night, right? And I would tell him, Willem, this is happening again. Like, I need your help. It's happening again. What, all drowsy. He would go, what do you mean? And I'm like, I don't know, but we have to go. Like, we literally have to get in the car and we have to go. It's almost like somebody's calling for help. And he would be like, oh my God, here we go again, right? Like, he always used to say that, oh my God, here we go again. And, like that specific night, I woke up and I told him, listen, this is happening again. We need to go. And we did. He always fully supported me, although he didn't truly believe, if that makes any sense, right? Like he would just be like, okay, whatever, let's go. And this time we actually got in the car, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he tells me, well, where are we going? And I'm like, I don't know, just drive, right? Let me feel what I'm feeling. Like, I don't know, something is happening. I need to find that feeling. So for some reason, I saw the word Rotterdam. Like, I kind of like saw it. And he goes, okay, well, we're going, to Rotterdam, because I told him I see the word Rotterdam. So as we're going towards Rotterdam, um, I saw like a road, like it was going like left, and I said, "That's the road. Take that road." And this was right before Rotterdam. It was like going towards Rotterdam, but he took. And I started guiding him. I started being like, "I need you to take a right. I need you to take a left. I need you to do this, and I need to, you know." And we must have drove for like half an hour, um, with me telling him what turns to take. And at one point, I see a gas station, and I said, "That's it. That's where it's coming from, right?" And he's like, "Well, there's nobody there." And I'm like, "Listen, I'm just telling you that's where it's coming from. We need to get there." So he goes into the gas station. It almost seemed like abandoned, but right behind the gas, like not behind, but like sideways where we couldn't see it when we were driving, there was like a car, and there was two people. It was like a couple, and you know, they were lost. They were not even from here. They were like lost. Their car broke down, um, and it didn't have like power, like so he had to like jump start it at that, and the lady that was, with her husband or significant other, she was crying, and I remember he pulled into it. We ended up getting out of the car. We go towards, we're walking around, and that's when we actually saw the car. So when we saw the car and we saw the two people, the guy that was there was like, "Oh my God, there's somebody here," right? And he got really excited. She was crying, and we were able to help them, right? Like he jump started their car. I actually had some money, right? And they didn't have any money. They were like literally traveling, just like they didn't have any money. They were just going. Right, that's the kind of way that they live. But this time, like the car broke down, and like nobody was passing by. So like, and I don't know what was the significance of that experience for them, but I know that my feeling took me to them. That's what I do know, right? And it wasn't the first. It wasn't like the first time that, and definitely wasn't the last. I think the most prominent one was. We had a hurricane back then, 10, 12 years ago. I don't really remember which one it was. But I remember I was washing the dishes, and I got the feeling again. And I said, Willem, it's happening again, right? Like, it's happening. We got to go. And the storm was so strong that I remember that I'm doing the dishes, right, as I'm feeling this feeling. And the canopy outside literally lifted up in the air, but it was kind of like attached to the ground. So it like the cord itself, it like lifted the canopy a little bit, and the winds were so strong that it broke the canopy, right? And I was like, oh wow, like it's pretty bad out there, and it's happening again. We have to go, and he looks at me, and forgive the language, but he goes, "Are you crazy? Like, you crazy bitch? Like you're taking me out in this storm? There's no way. I'm not gonna drive in this storm." And I remember telling him, we have to do what we're told, right? Like, and I'm being told that I have to go. And I didn't know how to drive back then. So I said, I need your help. I'm being told I have to be somewhere. And, we get in the car. Again, I guide him. And there was a bridge. And I'm pretty sure that was the Rotterdam Bridge, if I'm not mistaken. This was so many years ago. But it was raining so hard that the bridge was flooded completely. Like it was completely flooded. And there was a car inside of the bridge, right? Like under the bridge, there was a car. And I go, that's where it's coming from. Now, my ex-husband is ex-military, right? So for him, this was like super easy, because when I told him, hey, there's a car right there, look at that. And as we're looking, there was somebody inside of the car. And the car was like halfway into water, right? So, and it was an older gentleman. He must have been like 50, 60 years old when he took him out, because he actually went in the water and the door was stuck, so they couldn't open it at all. So my ex-husband ended up breaking the window to get the gentleman out of the car. And that was the most prominent experience I had. I actually cried because it was such an amazing experience for me, and I was full of gratefulness that I was able to be part of this, if that makes any sense.
No,
like, you chose me to help that person. right?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of gratefulness involved. Um, my ex-husband didn't, he would see these things happen and he would like support me and like do whatever I asked him to do, but he never truly believed until we lived in an apartment. And I was always really scared of the apartment, like super fearful. And I used to tell him, listen, I hear knocks during the day, right? Like, I'm seeing this man that's walking through the kitchen every night. And it was a man, I call him the man with the hat, right? Because he had like a hat. And I was very scared of him. And he was skinny and long and like white. And I was very scared every time I saw him. But I also would feel a kid, maybe like a 6-year-old, and I would see handprints on the window, and at nighttime, and I would tell my ex-husband, "Hey, I keep seeing a handprint, like a left handprint from like a 6-year-old on the window." And when he would come in the morning, he would go check the window, and there was nothing there. So I think that's why he wouldn't believe, because the things that I was seeing, he couldn't actually see. So for him, it was like truly overwhelming to be like, you're right. But this specific day, it had gotten so much. I mean, it was like daily that I was like seeing things and complaining about things. It was affecting my mental health, because now I started thinking like I was crazy and stuff. So we had agreed that, come that morning, the next morning, he was going to take me and I was going to go into the psychiatrist and I was going to put myself into the hospital. We had agreed upon that. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it, right? I don't want our marriage to kind of collapse. So if this is what it's going to take, maybe I can get some medication or whatever it is to kind of help me with whatever's happening. Because, maybe you are right? Like maybe all of this is coincidence. Like I will have a feeling and then randomly we find the person who needs help. Like maybe you are right. Or, maybe my mind is creating these images. So I was going to go that morning to the hospital, and I remember we were sitting on the couch and we were watching a scary movie, and to our left there was like an arch, right, that divided the living room from the kitchen, and I saw that man again in the arch. And I'm watching the movie and I see the man standing there, and I'm telling myself, tomorrow you're going to the hospital, you won't see things anymore, don't even worry about it, just ignore him, right? And I would keep looking, and I would look at the movie, and that went on for like 45 minutes. So at one point, my ex-husband, I remember him reaching out to get like the drink that was on his left. And when he goes to get his drink, he saw the man. And he jumps from one side of the couch all the way to the other side, and he's screaming like, oh my God, who's that? Like he's literally screaming out of fear. And we're talking about this ex-military guy that doesn't, he's not fearful of anything. Like his personality was really, really strong, as in like, he was goofy, he was strong, he nothing intimidated him, right? So he was scared, and I was like, I started crying when that happens, and I told him like, listen, he's been standing there for 45 minutes at least, but you always tell me that something is wrong with me. And that was the time that he actually believed me. So what he did is that he bought me a camera, and he would take me to the cemetery, and he would ask for me to follow my feeling. And I remember we actually went to the Troy Cemetery, and I followed my feeling. It was late at night, probably should have not been there.
Yeah.
And I had told them, hey, I feel anger, and somebody's really angry right now, and it's coming from that tombstone. So he ended up taking a picture with the camera that he had bought me specifically for this. And the picture, it came out this woman, like 20 years, and her mouth was kind of like hanging down in the picture. Like you could see the shadow. It was crazy. It was absolutely insane. But these events, of him believing me and then being able to actually do things that we can actually start getting some sort of proof, or things that were happening for me, was like great, right? So I kept digging into learning and trying to find out more about me, who I am, and what I can actually do, which is still a learning process. Every day is a learning process. because I get to learn more and I get to identify more things and kind of like take it to the next level a little bit. So
I remember whenever I was a kid, there's two events that I remember that nobody believes me at all. And I know it's crazy.
They never do. Nobody ever believes.
And I'm not making this up. You could talk to my mom because she thought I was crazy. So it was in Moore, Oklahoma, which you don't know. That's like tornado central. Anytime there's a tornado in Oklahoma, that's where they hit.
Mm-hmm.
There was this big creek in front of my house, and I remember I'd always go down into the creek and play. There was one day it was like a really bad rainstorm, and the creek was flooded. It was like 10 feet high of just rain, and it was surging. And I go over there, and I'm looking down. I'm like, oh, well, I can't play in the creek, obviously. And I see a man, like in a full suit and tie, just coasting, like fully coasting, just chilling with a briefcase. And I yell out to him, like, hey, do you need help? And he's like, no, I'm going where I'm supposed to. And he just kept floating. And I was like, am I crazy? So I go tell my mom, and my mom's like, was his suit dirty? I was like, no. She was like, was his suit wet? I was like, no. Then that wasn't real. I was like, you can't tell me I didn't see that. That why would I was like 5 or 6. Why would a child's mind come up with that? That is so weird. There was another instance, I want to say I was younger. I was probably like 4. But honestly, I don't actually know. I don't remember. I was young. And I was in bed. And I remember I heard my grandpa's voice. I must have been older than 4 because my grandpa died when I was 4. So I heard my grandpa's voice, and he told me, get under the covers, close your eyes, close your ears, don't move. And I did. And he told me to turn away towards the wall and don't move. Don't say anything, don't make any noise. And I heard so much noise behind me. But it wasn't like, it was like clashing of like metal, and like a fight was happening. But like it was loud and dramatic, like it was almost bursting my eardrums. So I kind of went against my grandpa's word, and I turned around and I looked under the cover, and I saw angels, what looked to be angels, fighting something in front. Like they were in front of my bed, and they were facing away, and they were fighting something. And so I got terrified. I went back and I hid, and then like after a while like it calmed down, and I waited like 30 minutes of just stillness, and then I opened my eyes, I looked around, the room was completely quiet, the moonlight was coming in from the window, and I remember like I crawled under my bed because I was still scared. I crawled under my bed, and my grandpa was there, like his silhouette. It wasn't him, it was his silhouette. And I remember he was like blue, and it was like a light blue, and he was like comforting me and like talking to me and telling me that like I did good, like I was okay, like everything was okay, and that nothing was gonna happen to me. And that's whenever I realized, like I really thought like after that, like maybe my grandpa was like my guardian angel or something, I don't know. And I told my mom about it. She thought I was crazy. She said that I just missed my grandpa and it was probably just a bad dream. But it wasn't a bad dream. It wasn't even like afterwards, it didn't even feel scary. Like it felt comforting knowing that like I was safe.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And I never understood those two instances, you know, because they both had like different feelings. One was just weird, the suited man, and the other one was, I don't know, like could it have been a child's mind making that up?
And that's what I thought, right? Like for so long that my mind was making stuff up or creating things. But as I grow and I'm more into what I do, I get to connect more to spirit, right? And I don't have any control over it. It just kind of happens. And that's what I kind of take classes now for, to try to control what's happening. But I could be, like at somebody's house, and messages will start coming through. And I don't see them as much anymore. If I actually see something, it's more I'm seeing a image that's not an image. Like before, when I was like younger, I actually physically was seeing it, like they were literally in front of me. Now I'm seeing like images or energy that puts itself together like a memory, and I'm grasping onto that memory, so I'm able to tell the person what do they look like, and give them a lot of information of like age, what do they look like. A lot of the times I'll get feelings of how they died or a sickness that they had while they were alive, right? So it could be that they suffered from a heart condition, and I can feel my heart kind of like hurting in my chest, right? Or like the latest one was my boyfriend's grandfather, and he was sick, right? Like everybody kind of knew that it wasn't gonna be long, right? And it was I can't remember exactly the date, but it was in July. And I remember I'm in the car with my boyfriend, and I say, hey, something is happening around us. And he goes like, what do you mean? And out of nowhere, I feel like almost like I'm having a seizure. That's what it felt like. And I tell him I'm having a seizure, and he's like, no babe, you're not having a seizure, you're perfectly fine. And I'm like, no, I know I'm fine, I'm just letting you know it feels like I'm having a seizure. So it's not me, it's somebody else. There's somebody else out there that's almost like having a seizure. I'm having a seizure. Like I feel my body, and it feels like electricity's going all over, and I feel like I'm having a seizure. He's like, you're not having a seizure. I said, yes, I know I'm not having a seizure, but I feel like I'm having a seizure. Like my head is going backwards. He's like, your head is not going backwards. I'm like, I know my head is not going backwards, but that's what it feels like. So I'm trying to tell him what it feels like. Like my head is going backwards. I feel electricity go from my head all the way down to my chest. My chest is hurting now, and everything stops, and I cannot move my body, but I can sense everything that's happening around me. I can hear the people who are around me. I know they're there. I just can't see them, and I can't move my body. That's what I told him. And he was like, okay, well, maybe somebody is giving you a message. Well, come 15 minutes after, 15 minutes, about 15 minutes, his mom calls them and says, grandpa, right, he got a stroke, and he's not waking up, so it's time. And I remember looking at him, and I said, I told you that something was happening, I just didn't know who, right? And for him it was like amazing to see that, because he was like, wow, like we're not even close to the house, and you felt all this. I literally felt it. I felt it like it was happening to me, and it wasn't a seizure, it was a stroke, but I never had either or, so I don't know what it feels like, right? So I kind of tried to put what I was feeling into words of what I thought it could be, but come to find out it was a stroke that he had. He ended up dying the next day at 11 o'clock in the morning. I believe it was 11 or 10. I actually have it on my phone, because I remember driving from his father's house to mine, and as I'm driving, I felt his dad was supposed to, drop me off to Walmart, and he was supposed to go to their house to kind of, meet up with my boyfriend's mom. And when he dropped me off to Walmart, it was my day off. I pick up my car, because sometimes I kind of leave it there. And I pick up my car, and as I'm driving home, I felt he's not going to make it. And when he arrives there, when Ken gets to the house, he's going to be dead already, right? Like he's going to pass. Like I already know this. So I felt a sigh of relief, and I felt the most beautiful peace I have felt in a long time. And I heard him say, I'm in peace now. Let them know I'm okay, right? And it dissipated. And I remember I took my phone and I screenshotted the time, and I texted my boyfriend, and I sent them the picture of the screenshot of just like the time, because I carry the time at all times on my phone for that reason, right? Like I don't have that's my wallpaper, or however we call it, for that reason, because sometimes when I feel something, I hit the time, because usually it's important. Well, his mom calls him, and she tells him, he's gone. And he calls me and he tells me, grandpa's gone. And I said, well, when did he pass? And he gave me the time, and and he said, it is the same time that you sent me the picture, right? Like it was the same time. So I said, well, he told me to tell you guys that he's in peace, right? he's okay now. So um, that was the most recent one, as in me being able to feel how somebody actually passes or what they kind of feel while they're going through that. Um,
That must feel really like a big responsibility. Like you're dealing with so much, you know, and there's not like a really big outlet for that because there's not a whole lot of like. Okay, so it's like whenever I was talking to Maggie about like sound therapy, she said that there's only like I think she said like only 100 people like in the world that are certified to do that. It sounds like something similar with you. Like it's so rare that like you don't really have someone else to reach out to in the same field.
So, that's a little bit of an accurate statement. I actually have met a lot of people who, have sort of different gifts, but almost like very similar to, so it's easier for me to communicate the things that I'm going through. I don't actually feel alone because I have different group supports that we kind of go through the same thing. Right now I'm taking my mediumship classes to try to control, because I can't do it at will at all. It's not like I can call somebody and then I can feel them. And I don't know if that is if I can't or I haven't tried, right? So I definitely haven't tried. And the reason I haven't tried is because a lot of the times that I have connected with spirit, every single time they have came to give me a message for them to be released. So for what I have seen is that there is a connection between the dead and the living that is not letting the dead move on a lot of times. And whether that is anger or sadness and sometimes guilt, sometimes I have seen just somebody who loves somebody so much they're not willing to let them go. But it creates a connection with the other side, and that spirit is still here, and that's when they have actually communicated to me. Every single instance it has been something like that.
Yeah, and I bet it's like a situation too, like if you did learn how to like call spirits, I bet they would be dangerous because you don't know who else is going to answer.
And it could be. I just it's not something that I have tried to do. I think it's because of respect almost. I haven't actually tried to call somebody specifically in. And I think the reason why is because I already seen this, right? Like I already seen that connection. And most spirits are asking me to break the connection, right? One example is my boyfriend's mom. That was me 3 months into being in a relationship with him. I was in the car and I had told him, hey, there's somebody here. And he goes like, what do you mean? And I go, yeah, there's somebody with you. No, I'm lying. It's not with you. They're around you. You're not the one connecting them here. I feel the connection, and that connection is going towards perhaps your mom. And he's like, I don't understand what you're talking about, right? Like, we have never talked about what happens to me at this point. And I said, well, I see a lot of yarn, and yarn is falling all around me, like rain, like just yarn falling all different colors around me. I can almost feel the texture of the yarn. And he goes, okay, what is happening? And I go, well, who owned the lake house? Like, this person, they own the lake house. Who owns the lake house? And he goes like, how do you know I have a lake house? And it wasn't him who had a lake house, but there's a lake house in his family. And I go like, well, I don't know. I'm feeling the lake house. Who owned the lake house? And he goes, well, my grandfather. And I tell him, well, does your grandfather pass? And he's like, no, but my grandma did. They were married for a long time. And I said, okay, well, that makes sense, right? Because I'm feeling really strict, like so strict, like strict, like too strict. And he started dying laughing, like he was laughing. And he goes, yep, that sounds like her. And I'm like, yeah, I'm standing in front of a window. And as I'm standing in front of the window, I see this little kid just running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Little prick doesn't stop running, right? And he's laughing even harder. He was like, that was me. Like when I used to go to the lake house, I would run back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And she used to be so upset because she just wanted me to stop. She wanted me to read and do activities or whatever it was, right? So I was like, okay, well, she is really strict and she's connected to your mom and she wants you to tell your mom that she's sorry. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, she's connected here because your mom has a wound. It's almost like I can see her heart, and her heart has a wound that has closed, but it's not healed. And she's saying, I am so sorry because if I would have known how to do it differently, I would have done it differently. And he says, I don't know what that means. And I'm like, I'm feeling that your grandmother was so strict on your mom that she took her childhood away. That's how strict she was, that she took her childhood away. And she's really, really sorry because if she would have known different, she would have done different. And that's what she's telling me. And, she wants her to know. And of course, I saw like a rocking horse. I saw a doll by the window, almost like every time I punish you, I'm taking your doll away and I'm going to put her in the window because you're going to look at her, right? Every single time you're punished, but you're not allowed to touch her. And I saw a lot of different things, when it came to how guilty she was for doing some of these things. And, I see his 3 kids, which I had never met at that point. And I see I see his mom taking care of the 3 boys with like a lot of love, right? And I remember her saying, me watching how they're raising those boys, it shows me what I did wrong because I was too strict and I took her childhood away, and I'm sorry. And at this point, this went on for like a whole hour and a half of back and forth messaging. And we went to his mom's house the day after, and I asked him, did you tell your mom? He's like, no, I don't really talk to my mom, right? And that's kind of weird that I would tell her this type of messages. So I remember going up and I said to her, you're gonna think I'm crazy and maybe you'll kick me out of your house, but I have to tell you this because it's overwhelming me and it's actually not allowing me to go forward until I give you this message. And she goes, what do you mean? And I go like, I told her the story, right? Like not the story, but my experience, my memory, and what I was going through. And she started crying and she said, I've forgiven her a long time ago. And I said, well, I don't think she's completely forgiven, and you have some sort of slightly resentment, and she needs you to let that go so she can cut the cord, right? And she can move on. But right now she can't move on. And that moment when my boyfriend heard his mom talking about how she had, the rocking horse and, how her mom was when they were younger and all these things, it all made sense, right? And then I remember when I saw the yarn, I kept saying, but I didn't know what, I was like, she crochets. And when I told his mom about the crocheting, because I did see her kind of like crocheting back and forth, and I was like, this gives her peace. This, whenever she's overwhelmed, she's at that lake house and she's like crocheting. And his mom goes, well, she never crocheted in her life. She used to do crewel, which is kind of like yarn, but it's a lot thinner and it goes into like a paper. And, that to me was a little overwhelming because that's not what I saw. I actually saw her crocheting, but I said, well, maybe I got it wrong, right? Maybe it was crewel and I couldn't really identify it and I thought it was crocheting. And she was like, it's okay, it's still. And she opens her room, she takes me to her room, and she had a lot of crewel around one of like her dressers and like different pieces that her mom had made, and she had saved them in that dresser. So this whole time I thought, she was crueling, right? Well, about 6 months after, because this was it was a year after, almost a year. He invited me to the lake house for the next summer, and we went to the lake house. And I remember that the year prior, when that whole experience happened, like a couple of days after, I had drawn some trees, and I said, there's 4 trees, they're all pine trees, all about the same size, and they're in the ground, like direct into like a line, and they're right across from like a moor, like a wall. And I kept looking through his family's houses, like his grandfather and stuff like that, and I could never find that image that I had seen. Well, that time when I went to the lake house with them, and I'm sitting in front of like the porch. I see one of the trees, and I felt the feeling again that I felt the year prior. And I go like, I need to see what's there. So those trees were actually a landmark to divide the property from their property to the neighbors. So when I see the tree, I go up to the tree, and I stand, like, I look at it towards like the other side, and it was the same image that I had drawn a year prior. And I showed him that. I said, look, but if you stand in the other side and you look towards the trees the same way that I saw the picture, it literally went, if I stood and looked at the trees in the same angle that I did a year prior when I drew everything, it literally leaded me to his grandmother's bedroom. Literally leaded me to her bedroom. And that same year, after I had shown him, he already had the picture that I had drawn with the trees, so he had it saved. And I said, that's what I'm seeing. And I had him stand and look at what I was seeing. And then, of course, when we went home, he took out the paper, and he was like, oh, wow, yeah, it is the same thing that you drew, right? And he showed it to his mom, and she started laughing. She's like, yeah, that's my mom's bedroom, right? That same year, his grandfather sold the lake house because he was sick. And when he sold the lake house, they had to clear the lake house. When they cleared the lake house, inside of the closet, inside of that room, they found a shirt that she was crocheting for her daughter. And that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing, because even her husband didn't know that she was crocheting. Nobody knew that she was crocheting. That was an amazing experience. But it took almost a year, in between the different messages and everything, to actually show what I was saying. Because they had me believe that it was crueling, because they didn't know she was crocheting. So that was one of my best experiences. Oh no, it's fine.
So do you think that his mom was able to or his grandma was able to pass on after that? Was she able to find peace?
So I felt her again, not too long ago, when his grandfather died, last month. So I know she's still there, and that there's still some work to do. I just haven't been able to go there to kind of help with it and see what's going on. Because I felt her again when we went to clean up the house. We were kind of walking through the house, the whole family, after he passed. So she's definitely, still there, and her energy is still here. I just haven't had an opportunity in between work and whatnot to kind of figure it out, because it does take a lot of energy when it happens.
Okay.
And she's really strong about communicating.
That sounds really intense.
Yeah, she can be very strong. When she communicates, it takes a lot of my energy away, and I feel like very, very tired afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it does affect your energy in a way.
Oh, absolutely. It does. It
Okay.
takes a lot of energy.
And you said like sometimes it's hard for you to like move on unless you deal with it, unless you see it, unless you help with it.
Yes.
And it's not just, you know, the ones that have passed on, but it's the living as well.
Correct.
Like sometimes you feel an energy that draws you to go help someone, or draws you to a place where somebody needs help.
Those actually give me headaches.
Really?
I get very strong headaches afterwards. Yes.
Oh wow. Okay, that's really cool. I like that.
Oh, well, I don't know if I like it that much. I don't like the headaches, but they do give me headaches afterwards. So like after everything is done and over with, and I kind of come back to my senses, then I end up receiving a headache.
You know, this reminds me, like, there's been a lot of research done into the fact that we only use like a percentage of our brain. And there's a bunch of theories out there that a lot of the mental illnesses that are out there aren't really mental illnesses. They're just us tapping into a percentage
Correct.
of our brain. And if we could understand it better, it would enhance the human experience. That's what I believe.
And I absolutely believe that as well.
And that's just the beginning. We've only scratched the surface of Adeline's story and the wisdom she carries. In part 2, we go deeper into healing, growth, and the kind of life lessons that don't just inspire you for a moment, but stay with you for years. So, take a breath, let this part sink in, and I'll see you next time for the rest of the walk.